excited about this. So we're going to get started. I think we've got a critical mass and people will be joining as we keep going. I'm super pumped for this session. It's actually our first OneReq Connect session that is specifically focused on headcount planning. And to be even more specific, strategic headcount planning.
You broke it.
Oh, Pamela W., do you mind muting, please? Thank you. And we have Tushar, who's the co-founder and CEO of TeamOhana, and Emily, who is our OneReq host for this session, but I'll allow Emily to introduce herself very shortly, who are going to lead us through a roundtable discussion. And then we'll be able to also get some insights from Tushar into pretty much what he's been seeing, having spoken with a number of different companies across the 4 years of TeamOhana, working with finance partners, recruiting ops partners, and obviously heads of talent. One of the things that I'm most excited about is the fact that Emily, you are like a veteran in the RecOps community, and that's why we wanted you to host this. So, Emily, I'll hand it over to you to facilitate the session. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Wahab, and great to always see you again. I know I enjoyed the OneRec conference and see you next October. This October. I can't even say next October anymore. It's a couple months away. See you there. I'll introduce myself and then I'll pass it over to you, Tushar. So hi, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces. I see a question in the chat. Feel free to be off camera or on camera. Totally your choice. I love to see everybody's face. Makes these conversations a little bit easier. I don't have to just stare at Tushar. I can stare at other people's facial reactions and riff off that way as well. My name is Emily. I currently lead our recruiting operations team here at Postman. Based out of the Bay Area, I call myself an office nomad. So I'm in San Francisco, Cupertino, Berkeley, all over the Bay Area. So if anybody local wants to meet up, happy to chat about all things recruiting ops. My role at Postman currently really spans and expands into building all the recruiting operations functions. And what that means is, and Tushar can speak a little bit about this as well, is Postman didn't previously have a RecOps person. So I was brought in and came in to build all the process for recruiting so that we can drive efficiency. TeamOhana as a tool was gifted to me, as I like to say. So really thinking about how we have thoughtful headcount planning, how we think about the hot topic capacity planning for recruiters, how we're scaling our teams and growing our teams, especially while Postman grows significantly at this point in time. So my background as well is I've been in the RecOps space for about 8+ years, spanning various companies, both enterprise and startup. My bread and butter is that midsize, so thinking just shy under 1,000 employees and trying to get our headcount over 1,000. So I love that space. I love to be able to work and play in that area because I love the chaos, and that's kind of why us recruiting ops people are here. Tushar, I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Emily, and thanks, Bob, for getting this wonderful crowd together here. My name is Tushar. I'm the founder of TeamOhana. I've been at building TeamOhana for the last 4 years. Before that, claim to fame is that I used to work at a company called VMware when we used to call the cloud a virtual machine. And in my first startup, my virtual machine and my cloud servers were in my living room. So that tells you I'm very old. And how did I chance upon this very interesting, people say startups are best built if you face the same problems, or startups are best built if you were at a large company, you saw something and then you left and you started building something. I honestly chanced upon this topic when I was talking to CHROs and CFOs at a previous company called Airbase. Airbase grew very quickly from 5, I was employee number 5, to 250 during the pandemic years, and recently got purchased by Paylocity. And this was during the pandemic, so we had a lot of time talking to people. And one of the things that I was talking to CFOs and CHROs there, for our customers, they always came back and talked about, hey, we have a lot of these different tools. There is an accounting software, there's an HR software, there's a recruiting software, but the company's largest expense, which is headcount or people is still managed in a spreadsheet. And this, honestly, why these conversations were happening, because I think we all had a lot of time. I was the head of sales at Airbase, so I wanted to be in touch with all my customers. So I used to invite them to these Zoom meetings, and they all started talking about these different things. And one thing that I realized was that despite having a lot of different tools, this one space was not fully solved for. And that got me interested. And I started working on this in early 2021. So now fast forward to 2025, we're working with 100 plus customers. And I don't consider myself an expert at anything. I'm a learner by trait. But what I has really figured out is that this workforce planning is very important. Everybody should take keen note of this, because efficiency is the name of the game moving forward. So if you don't manage your company's largest expense, you're most likely not going to be able to manage your company. There will not be any company to go and support in the future. So excited to have this conversation with all of you guys. We will not make this about TeamOhana. We'll make this about the topic itself. And wherever TeamOhana as a product can add value, I will spring up and share my screen. And I'll let Emily control all of those things.
And that means I'm asking all the hot and spicy questions that us recruiting ops people have. And we thank you all for filling out the pre-survey of the main topics you want to hear about. With unanimous consensus, it's all about headcount planning. Headcount planning is the hot topic that we are trying to solve for, especially as recruiting operations people. I know myself, in particular here at Postman, we have done headcount planning in the year that I've been here, maybe already 4 different ways. Once monthly, once quarterly, once every 6 months, and now we're exploring into annually. So we've attempted to do everything under the sun, and it's hard, right? We can all agree with that. There's no right way or right answer, just best practices and how we can adapt and make it work best for us. Where it's been really helpful for me, and Tushar, before I head into questions for you specifically, is understanding which stakeholders I need to partner with. So for myself, the HRBP team, the business leaders, the finance team, as well as other, the recruiting leads that we have, to even think about how headcount translates into staffing for recruiters as well. In particular, Tushar, with your experience, and you touched upon this, right? You work with CHROs, you work with CFOs, generally speaking. How do you see CFOs? What's the mindset that they have in CHROs? How do they approach headcount planning?
I think it's a very complex question, because both tend to look at it slightly differently. And that's why this is, we believe it's still a not 100% a solved problem, but the CFO comes at it from a capital allocation system. Like, hey, there is certain amount of dollars that we are going to be spending in a given year. And how do we make sure that we are spending it in the most optimal way? And the CFO is looking at it from 2 lenses, which is, I should know at all times how much money is I'm holding the bag for, as what they like to call it, right? What am I going to be accounted for? And on the other hand, they are also looking for what is going to be the return on that investment. Can I take if I take this money from one department and give it to the other department, am I going to get a larger return? That's why they are always very interested in learning from RecOps community, or the RecOps person in the companies, that are you going to meet your target start date or not? How confident are you? And if you're not, tell me in advance. Use some crystal ball to go predict that number, so that I can go and make a better prediction for how I want to spend the money. So that is one. The CHROs come at this from a slightly different angle, but they do care about the dollars and cents, of course, but they also care about, instead of hiring from outside, should I promote from within? So internal mobility is important for them. That's why it is so funny in TeamOhana, when I'm talking to the CHROs, they will quickly bring up the org chart view, while the CFO will only bring up their data sheet view, which is the list view, which has all the numbers, because they are not caring as much about who is filling the role, but they're talking about dollars and cents. So span of control comes up a lot. If you're a large company, they are saying, if we have to go and build out and hire 100 new people, in which offices should we go and hire for those people? So they are looking at it from a very organizational perspective, versus the CFO is looking at it from more of a dollars and cents perspective. the budget perspective. So I think that is fundamentally the difference that we see.
And us as the recruiting ops people are in that interesting role where we have to tie those two pieces together and find a common language so that, dare I say, that the CFO and the CHRO don't kill one another in thinking about the allocation of spend. You touched upon target start dates. That's a hot topic that we have. And me as a TeamOhana user, I know this isn't a TeamOhana chat, it's a headcount planning chat. You mentioned, right, we have to figure out the crystal ball of when the target start date for that new hire looks like. How do you recommend navigating through target start date? Because we're not the people actively recruiting, right, roles. We can anticipate and we can gauge, right, where this person is in the pipeline or where the top candidates are and how quickly we're moving, estimate time to hire and things like that. But how do we actually truly navigate it? So finance and my head of finance doesn't continue to yell at me personally that the target start date is incorrect and we're hiring 500 people in the month of June, which is already almost over. So how do you suggest navigating through having those tough conversations with the CFO?
So I think I don't think you can there is no good answer, because fundamentally this is a response, like this data is sitting truly in the applicant tracking system. So, we've been working with Postman for, this is our 4th year. So we have a lot of data on how long it takes for Postman to fill the roles. And when I say us, Greenhouse also has it. If you use
Mm-hmm.
Ashby has it. If you use Gem has it, right? But that data is not actionable in any shape or form today. It is just dumb data sitting in some database in these systems. So before I answer how we are seeing people solve this, I think the simplest thing we can do is build a cadence. And this is one of the best practices that we talk to all the RecOps team members that we work with, is that there should be some cadence. It can be bi-weekly or it can be once a month. You must go and look at your headcount plan, and you will know at that point in time that if a role was supposed to be filled in a given month and you haven't filled it yet. So TeamOhana, we have a signal which is called at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're at risk, you then know that this is not going to be filled. And you can go and make a prediction that should we move it plus 30, should we move it plus 45. So it's manual, because we are relying on you to do this. The better way to do this is looking at this data, and a system has to do it. So TeamOhana is very blessed to have Vercel, Postman, Docker, Scale.ai, and 90 other customers. So our recommendation now is that we have started predicting the target start dates for our customers. So it is based on the seniority or the type of role, because we capture that part of this position. Are you hiring for a level 3? Are you hiring for a level 5? In which department? Certain departments are harder to fill roles than the others. And then we are looking at all the past information that we have for your company. So we are looking at a normalized data set across all our customers,
Mm-hmm.
because we are just catering to tech. And then we are looking at how you are doing, and then we are making a prediction for you. So we track 3 dates, a target open date where we signal to our customers if you want to meet a certain target hire date, when you should be starting to recruit for this role. The next is what we call is target hire date. And the third is target start date. The finance team cares about the target start date, but if the target open date and the target hire date are missed or reset, the target start date automatically resets as well. So short answer is that if you're a 100, 200-person company or 1 or 2 RecOps folks, at least try to do this manually yourself. And don't look at the full hiring plan. Just look at the role that you are set to fill in a month or in a quarter, and start sharing with your finance leads on what that number is. Because think about this, right? A target start date estimated in a model for the finance team means I am going to start burning capital on this date. So a 15-day gap or a 25-day gap across 20, 30, 40 role is hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what the finance team doesn't explain all the time to people, but to the anybody outside of finance. But that's the whole idea, that if you tell me in advance and I compound those savings across multiple roles, that means I have 300, $400,000 left and as deferred cost that I'm not spending right now. So that's why they care so much about the target start date. And then when somebody actually receives an offer, they want you to put the offer target hire date, or the, what is it called? The
The
start date,
actual start date.
actual start
Mhm.
date.
Mhm.
And that's why they want you to come and quickly update their spreadsheet, because that now adds to the thing. So honestly, a system should be able to do a lot of these things, but if you don't have systems, you should at least build that cadence to do this at least once a month.
Yeah. And that's great insight. That's perspective, right? From me as a recruiting person, that I don't receive. Exactly. You hit nail on the head, is that your finance people won't tell you this. They'll explain it in a very long-winded way that sometimes doesn't
Like
really
I
make
did,
sense,
like I
right?
did.
Versus, just getting to the layman's terms, right? If we're over, that's not good. And we need accurate review. You did touch, Tushar, is that at this time, it does feel very manual. With growing AI and automation, right? What suggestions or trends are you seeing that you're seeing within the business or within headcount planning that would help reduce some of that manual work, right? With manual tracking in a spreadsheet. And I swear this is not a TeamOhana plug, without tracking on a manual spreadsheet or without having to manually update those target start dates. Where do you see, automation coming into a play in this, maybe in the future or already happening now?
Yeah. So I think the good news is that we have a finite number of systems to work with. The HR system, whether it's Workday or Bamboo or what have you, is the source of truth of people existing in the company.
Mm-hmm.
Applicant tracking system is the source of truth of roles that you are actively recruiting for right now. And then
Mm-hmm.
there is a spreadsheet, which is the source of truth of how many positions do you wish to fill in a given time frame, which is what's the people call it approved headcount. I think the opportunity before AI or anything is to replace that spreadsheet. Um, Greenhouse has very good APIs, so that you can then control and have pull information out of Greenhouse at any given point in time, like what is the current status of hiring. Uh, Workday Bamboo HR has information about how many people have joined, how many people are leaving the company. So what we need is, or what was missing is that there has to be something that connects the dots, because an ATS is sold to a talent leader, HRIS is sold to the HR leader, and FP&A or budgeting software is sold to the finance leader. So the first thing to do is have one system that controls or talks to all of these three other systems. So if the budget changes, it is automatically updated. If you want to open roles, or if something changes, like you push out a target start date in Greenhouse, or you see that the average number of applications for this job is lower than what you have seen in the past, the connected system automatically understands it and keeps updating things for you.
Mm.
And that's the biggest opportunity with AI, is that you can take large sets of unstructured data and make sense out of them very quickly, and most importantly, very cheaply. Let's not undermine the fact that data has been around for many, many years. But
Mm-hmm.
ask anybody who has implemented a Tableau or something, it is millions of dollars and many, many months. Now with AI, that complexity layer is simplified. So that's why we are recommending through our AI what should be your target start date. Uh,
Mm.
it's all about bringing a layer of forecast or a prediction into the system, that even before you go and make a decision, can we recommend the right decision to you? And I think that's the biggest opportunity. And in particular to headcount planning, we see three places where we say, hey, one is based on whatever we are seeing in Greenhouse and crunching that number, and based on whatever has happened in the past for you as a company, we don't think you're going to hit this target start date. Second, when people do backfills,
Mm-hmm.
everybody assumes that the backfill is going to happen in some short period of time, and you also assume or that you're going to pay the person the same amount that you paid the person that you're backfilling. That is the next place where we are seeing opportunity that we are helping our customers with is that the average time to backfill for this type of role in this type of location is this. And you on average pay 20% more than what you had paid before. This is a very simple thing to do. It all sits in your greenhouse offer data or in your workday, but it just needs to be operationalized. So I think those, from a workforce planning perspective, how do you treat backfills and compensation for backfill, and how do you take the greenhouse data and make it more actionable is what is the biggest opportunity.
How do you recommend Tushar enabling those conversations with whether that's a head of talent or the HR business partner or the CHRO? How do you recommend having to, starting those conversations about how we think about backfill, how we think about hiring strategy, so that we can forecast for the next fiscal year of what headcount looks like, or even thinking about right, the headcount planning holistically? How do we start having those conversations with the knowledge and with the data that you're suggesting?
I think I would recommend talking to, depending on the size of the organization, someone in the finance team rather than any other team first. I think the finance team will be very honest to tell you that what has been the trailing 12 months or trailing 6-month variance. So every company, big or small, has an operating plan, right? And you might have heard that a lot of companies and accounting teams talks about budgets versus actuals. How much did we budget and what was the actual? Before, I would say that when capital was free in a way, and you always knew how much money you were going to raise, and not everybody was looking at the efficiency metrics. We used to look at, your credit card spend or your Amazon spend, like your cloud spend, and that's where BVA used to run most of the time, or marketing spend or sales spend. Headcount spend was not really cared as much about, because people realize that, okay, if I raise a round of funding, I have to hire all of these people, only then I'll be successful. That whole equation is inverted on its head now, and you're saying that doesn't mean you are hearing 10% companies doing 100 million in ARR. And the next, you don't know how efficient your next fundraise is going to be. So now the biggest question for the finance team is, hey, looking at the past 6 months, how have we deviated from the plan? We call it plan drift. Plan drift largely means, did we overspend or did we underspend? Both are bad. Overspend, you run out of money, you die. Underspend, it's an opportunity cost, you die. Sorry for being very morbid here, but that is the conversation to have with the finance team. And then if you peel the layers, just look at the last 50 backfills you have done and run an analysis, or that did we pay more or less, and by how much. Backfills are one of the largest contributing factors of drift, because when somebody leaves, how you backfill that person is kind of wild west, even in large companies. I'm talking about 5,000 person companies. So that is one thing I would say, that if you just take that information and go back to the finance team, ask them to run some numbers for you, you can take that and make sense for the CEO or CHRO very quickly, that, hey, this is something that we should be taking a look at. A lot of the roles now are just getting canceled. We have seen with some of our customers, when this is an opportunistic riff. They come into TeamOhana and they mark that all of these positions that we have riffed right now, they are ineligible for backfill. So you're not even allowed to request a backfill for it. So I think that is where I would recommend you start the conversation with, in the backfill itself.
Now, what if, we're at we talked a lot about startups and being able to access, right, finance people and being able to access these leaders. What if you don't have the access to your CFO? Who do you navigate this conversation with? Is it directly with the hiring manager? Do you have these kind of tough conversations with hiring managers directly? Do you empower them to talk to finance? Do you have this conversation with the HRBP or PBP to think about strategically? Or do you just talk to your manager about it and start the conversation there? As a tough one.
This is a very hard question. I think the challenge for hiring managers is that they are already tied to certain goals, right? So the problem statement, and we see this even in our sales process, right? We cannot start bottom up. you have to go top down. This is a top down problem statement. And the key, so if you report into the VP of talent, I think they are already hearing from their CFO. Any good CFO is having that conversation with them, is that my forecast is wrong because the numbers you give me is wrong. And then the talent is saying, well, I'm doing my best to keep that spreadsheet up to date. Why don't you just log into Greenhouse and take a download yourself? Right. So that's the challenge, but I don't think going bottom up helps. The hiring manager is so already stressed trying to figure out how do they hire the best talent in order to go hit the business goals or build the product or sell the product. But this conversation, we have seen mostly that every organization that we are working with has what we call is a finance business partner or an FP&A analyst as the ear of the VP of FP&A or the VP of finance, because they were hired to do that. And their job is to reconcile headcount day in, day out. That would be the person that I would reach out to. And I say that because there are two types of people who sign up for TeamOhana as demos. It is either the RecOps person or the FinOps person, right? And if we convince them that we can solve it, because they are feeling the pain day in, day out, someone is telling them do something and they are unable to do it because of lack of systems, lack of time, lack of what have you. And then they come and search for TeamOhana or search for workforce planning solution on Google, find us, and they build the best cases to go up market. Like, no, I mean, to the bosses, I would say. Very seldom has a CFO signed up for TeamOhana, but it is always the CFO who signs the contract and gives us the check. So eventually we get there, but we build the case with the FinOps person or the RecOps person.
So you're saying that FinOps and RecOps signs up, but the CFO is the one that signs off on,
Exactly.
on the tool.
I mean, anytime we, like in our sales process, if we haven't spoken to the CFO within a certain time frame, we know we are at risk. It has to be a CFO level problem in a company. That's why we also feel that at 500 is the sweet spot. 300 to 500 is the sweet spot where this becomes a meaningful dollar amount for people to care for. Right.
Very
It's
interesting.
not an SMB problem.
Interesting. And with that, I'm going to take us on a little bit of a pivot, Tushar. What are some headcount planning trends that you're seeing, you're hearing in the market when we're talking to customers about headcount planning and the problems and the struggles that they're facing right now?
I think the whole aspect that headcount planning has to be done once a year or maybe twice a year is the root of a lot of problems that people are seeing. Headcount planning is a continuous planning motion. And I think that is one of the motivations of building a tool around it, as well, to make it easy for people to actually do this on a continuous basis. The number one trend is capital allocation. That is what smart CFOs talk to us about. That, hey, if I'm an investment banker or I'm a portfolio manager in a large investment firm and I'm managing billions of dollars in capital, I have to allocate it correctly. So the fact of the matter is that if you are looking at your portfolio as a portfolio manager every day, like please watched any of the Wall Street shows like Billions. I'm a big Billions fan. Like they are sitting there all day long looking at their screen on their Bloomberg terminals. How can you think about that the same thing. If you have an average, like it's hundreds of millions of dollars are being spent on people at companies. Why are you looking at that on a 6-monthly basis? That is just backward. The best companies, I can say this because I have permission from Scale.ai. Scale.ai pulls data out of TeamOhana every 3 hours to run a headcount forecast. That's the goal, right? Who just got bought 49% for $15 billion? Scale.ai did, right? For a multitude of reasons. But they came and told us that we are going to pull data, your API bloody damn work. We are pulling data every 3 hours to run an accurate headcount forecast. I think that's the gold standard. So it cannot be 3 months, 6 months, once a year. It's a continuous planning process. It's hard. That's why only one shameless plug. That's why you should buy a tool.
Can you show us? I'll double down on that. On
Yeah,
that
let me quickly jump in, right? Like this is a very good example. This is where we start in TeamOhana, right? Like this tells you exactly what is your current headcount. I have to ask that question, right? Emily, you can see my screen, right?
You can see it.
Okay. So where is your current headcount and what is the forecast right here? So you are currently at 268 and you're forecasting 362. What is your current spend and where are you going to end up in the year, right? Now, you should, if you have employees, terminations, all of that will show up right here. I'm just using a test account for a second. You can see we are the budget variance is the number one insight that we provide to the CFO on this dashboard. We also have insights for recruiter capacity. We have insights for, are you going to hit your target dates or not? I'll show that to you. But this is the thing, right? This department spent 14% more than budget in Q2. And why? Primarily paying higher offers than what was planned, right? And the second thing is this department spent 2% more than budget, primarily due to making early hires, right? Capital allocation problem, front and center. And you can then go in, you can click in, and you can go deeper into what TeamOhana does, right? But what powers all of this at the back end is basically what I call is this hiring tracker. This is your spreadsheet. The contract that we do with the RecOps community is that once the plan is in TeamOhana, manage it in TeamOhana. So you have all this information captured right here into TeamOhana as well. Right? What is changing is also shown in sort of a quick audit. So if a new headcount is added, if a headcount was changed, right? If compensation was increased or decreased, all of this is captured right here. So this becomes your command and control center. This is also the place where you have discussions with the hiring managers. So I can go in and I can just look at customer success. My entire dashboard only talks about customer success now. So the same data that you see here, if you have to talk to finance, they have a different dashboard, right? What was the budget? 9 million. What is the forecast? 10 million. What is the variance? 1.5 million. So hiring manager does not care about hiring. Finance cares about how you're spending the money. So this is the actual real-time forecast. And then the RecOps leader can sit in front of the recruiting team and say, these are the jobs to be done and how I'm going to get there. Now, I have like something that we are launching next month that I'll show, but I want to quickly show that how does the automation help, right? The key thing that we've built is that I can go in here and I can click in the security engineer and say, okay, this is like a position object. I want to hire something. So I click in here and right from here, I can create a job, whether it is lever, greenhouse, Ashby. My current account is connected to Ashby, so I'll just show you that. So I clicked on this number and I filled up engineering and I say create job. And then you can see the data from TeamOhana is automatically populated in the Ashby create opening form. If you want to type out, and any number of custom fields can be populated. There's a target start date, job code, everything. And then I create an opening and then it failed. Great. If something doesn't work then it's a wrong demo. I'm lying. So right here, I can take you in how it looks in Ashby. So this is the number one automation that we've built with all the large providers, which is you have this entire opening is now controlled by TeamOhana. And anytime you make a change to the opening or you update the opening either here or in TeamOhana, we automatically keep both the systems in sync. And as soon as an offer is made against this opening, we will also show you that there is an offer right here. So this one little connection that you did to join two systems is the only thing you need to do. Now the two systems are connected at the hip. And any update that is happening in TeamOhana flows back to Ashby. So if you go and decide in TeamOhana that you want to increase the budget from a level 2 to a level 3, Ashby will be updated in real time. If you go update Ashby and say, I just made an offer, TeamOhana will have that offer. So we technically become the source of truth of all the things that are happening for the headcount plan. Now, there are many other things we do, but I wanted to quickly show you this because I know, Emily, you and I have been talking for over a year now, which actually means you've been yelling at me for a year to go build something. So this is now going to be a sooner reality, right? So I want to quickly show you like how we are bringing automation and prediction to the recruiting team. So we know what your goal was. You were supposed to hire 47 people. We know what is actuals. I was talking about budgets versus actual, right? So you're currently sitting at 12 hires. Our system, by looking at recruiter capacity, recruiter throughput, number of job openings, time to hire, all the things that are happening in outside systems, can project that, hey, off that 47, you can only hit 28. Immediately you are seeing, okay, what is going to go wrong? We are telling you there are some roles that are past due, there are 3 that are at risk, and there are 21 on track. We are also telling you your current shortfall is 11, right? So, and your projected gap is 19. So you are going to be short by 19. Now you need to take action. You either need to go and hire more people, reduce the number of positions, and you can see here, these insights will also tell you what you need to take action on. Now you need to convince someone like, hey, RecOps, you're probably not doing your job right. Hopefully nobody says that. But here is an easy way to tell them what I call is a burn down chart. It's very simple. The target was I want to make 27 hires. You have for a month of February, you have made 17 hires. You have archived, means you don't want to hire them. You pushed out 4 roles. You push them out to a future date, and then you have 4 which are past due. But now let's go and drill down deeper. No, originally you had said 15. You added 2 out of the blue in that month itself. The 8 are rolled over from the previous month. 1 was pulled in from a future month to a current month. And then if I go and look at the hired, you can also see how many were hired on time, how many were delayed hires. And then you can see how many roles are actually open and what is past due. This data does not exist anywhere today outside of TeamOhana. I mean, if you are very good at spreadsheets, you can do it. But if you go to your finance team or to your VP of talent or to any hiring, even the VP of engineering, and say, look, this is what's really happening in our plan. There is so much churn or change. Either we need more resources or we need to adjust the target start dates. We are not going to be hit. This is the reason why TeamOhana is projecting that you're going to miss your plan by 19. Now, if Emily, you're missing the plan at Postman, this is not 19. This is 50, 100 maybe, right? Because you're a large company. This is my test data. I'm not showing. Then we give you more details onto what is the recruiters, how are individual recruiters performing. And then we tell you hiring health of each of the recruiters if you want to go and spot anomalies. And then we also tell you how offers are being made and offers are being accepted. Now, this data I have not seen if Gem has this data or not, but the way we think about this is that, hey, there were 32 total headcounts or positions to be filled, of which only 25 had offers associated with them. A total of 35 offers for these 25 headcounts were made. 7 were rejected, 24 are still pending, and 4 are accepted, right? And because this is a prototype here, you will also be able to do this on the reporting manager. So we are not just putting a spotlight on the recruiting team, we are also putting a spotlight on the hiring managers. That is there an anomaly of a hiring manager that is where the acceptance rate is lower? And the insights that we will tell you is, hey, these are the folks, these are the recruiters who are not hitting their capacity, or these are the hiring managers who are having worse performance than the rest of their peers in your organization, right? So if there is one thing to take from this conversation, I know we are almost at time and I want to leave some part for questions, hopefully, is that you need to have a centralized system that all parties trust. They will only trust if you can claim to them that I'm connecting to your destination systems. HRIS, ATS, and FP&A. Those are the 3 core systems TeamOhana works with. And the second thing is any system that you're looking for, right? When we first started 4 years, we were the only kid on the block, but now there are a lot of people who are joining us and building workforce planning tools. you have to ask that person that, what is the forecasting capability you're giving me? Forecast is not just for finance and dollars, it is also for hiring, and it is also for RecOps. If we cannot show you a good, dependable forecasting model, don't buy the software because it's a waste of money. Right? So yeah,
That's
that would be my two things that I showed. Yeah, I mean, everybody on this call, my team will reach out to you, and you can politely say go away, and we will. I promise we will not hound you on any of the channels. But if there is interest, let me know. I will personally get on a call with you and share more about TeamOhana.
And I think even the product aside, having a centralized place, right? You can manage headcount in spreadsheets, but headcount managed in spreadsheet, one is succumbs to human error, and two, we don't always talk about what happens at offer stage. We don't think about capacity planning in a holistic way where, you know, in the demo you just showed, right, we're able to see, all right, where's the variance? Where's the anomaly? We know, we have a feeling that this recruiter is not working at capacity, but what does that actually mean? Is that the recruiter, or is that the hiring manager? Or is that just literally a difficult to fill role? What does that actually mean? It's great to be able to see it in a holistic place and use that data to translate and have that empowered conversation versus a conversation based off feelings and vibes and general sentiment, which is what happens a lot of the times now, right? So using that
And the
data.
CFO won't agree, won't buy that, right? But CFO would buy looking into your data set and saying, okay, Emily is coming from a very clear place of, she's got the data. Numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. You're
Right.
right. And
Lie.
I'm going to say a taboo thing for a recruiting operations person to say, and even understanding, right? If we have these pressing hiring goals, do we need to engage an agency or do we need to hire someone else because we're in a hiring sprint for sales folks or whatever it may be? Understanding that and using that to leverage potential spend, not so much for another tool, but for headcount, additional headcount.
The savings pay for the tool itself. And I think I would just say that this is still the beginning. We are just scratching the surface. There is so much work to be done.
Mhm.
And that keeps me motivated and excited because um, we get this vantage and opportunity to talk to the RecOps community. We get the opportunity to FinOps community, the HR community, also CEOs, and like who are only looking at the fact that how will I hit my business goals, and I'm within the dollars that I'm setting aside, because they have to go tell the board as well that what happened to why are you spending more and still doing less with it? Spend
Mm,
less and do more with it, right?
mhm.
So exciting times, right? And I think RecOps is going to continues to be a very important aspect in every in every company. And we can also see when you don't have a RecOps leader in one of our customers, uh, it shows in how they utilize the tool and also how they perform as a company. So, we highly recommend everyone that the FinOps person is an admin of the TeamOhana budget module versus the RecOps person is the owner of the TeamOhana talent module, because we have
Mhm.
modules built into the platform.
Makes sense. And Tushar, we have a couple questions in the chat. I know Craig has jumped in and answered some of them, but they're good questions. I'll consolidate some of them. In the TeamOhana platform, where is data pulled from, and are you able to have multiple sources of truth? I know you touched upon this a little bit around Greenhouse, around being able to have the API connect to different tools. Maybe you could also use Postman as an example of how we use ChartHop and Greenhouse and
Yeah.
all the
So
tools.
yeah, by default, we connect into all the major HR platforms and FP&A platforms, and also all major ATS platforms, right? Uh, just by the nature of the type of customers we work with, Greenhouse, Ashby, are Huge, and Lever are the three that are most used by our platform. But if you use Workday ATS or Taleo, we still integrate with them. And to have a better conversation, did I answer the question on where the data is pulling from? So
I think so.
we can also pull from Anaplan if you're thinking about So yeah, HRIS, ATS, and FP&A. Those are the three primary sources we pull from.
Cool.
We also pull from compensation, but there is no tool for that. You can
Yet.
upload yet, but you can upload your entire comp philosophy, or I would say job architecture, into TeamOhana, and we will operationalize that for you. So when somebody comes and says, I want to hire 5 AI engineers in San Francisco, we will look at what your comp team has said for the AI engineer in San Francisco and automatically show both finance and talent what the recommended salary band is.
Cool. And then the question we had in chat was, for the hiring manager and business focused dashboards, does this data enable TA leaders to have better conversations about rec prioritization with business leaders and the HR business partners? Also, do hiring managers get the finance view as well?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can set the finance view for every. We have a finance dashboard as well, which is slightly different, which only talks about budget, forecast, variance. But the prioritization is that here is the thing, right? I don't think a system should be telling you to prioritize something. I think a system can reliably spot an anomaly and say, you're going to miss your goal. But then TeamOhana has a very easy filtered down view of what are the hires that we are making in this month and the next month, and allows you to go set the priority there. So imagine, instead of doing this in a spreadsheet or on a Zoom call, you are now all operating like, think of this, TeamOhana has a mode where you can all collaborate on the same sheet with the right access control. So you can have the VP of engineering and the VP of sales and you in the same sheet, but they both see different things and you see everything that they are doing. So just go into the what we call is a scenario planning mode and have each of them go and turn on and turn off and say, oh, I think I don't want to hire this role, or I think I'm going to push this out by 30 days, or I'm going to do this next quarter, or I'm going to cancel this role and hire someone different. They can do all of this in their own sandbox with you being the person who's observing, without changing the company's actual hiring plan. So you just go into the sandbox mode to go into that.
Cool. So I love the flexibility. I love the ability to change views and, wear different hats, especially as an admin. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but does anybody feel brave, have any questions, want to come off mute, or want to ask any last questions?
Well, how about ask the question, who typically pays for the product? I think you should, if you really want a shot at buying the product, you have to convince the CFO from the long-term value. And that is a trend that we are seeing more and more. CFO is paying for everything, right? Unless you're buying a $20 ChatGPT subscription, you can put it on your credit card. It's going to scrutinize everything. So you should, and as I said, if they think if you go speak to your FinOps person and say, are you able to run an accurate forecast? We ask this question, what is your current headcount? And people always give 3 different answers on a call. And I have done this on sales calls, because someone is looking at payroll data, someone is looking at a plan that is updated in Anaplan, and then talent is looking at, oh, well, I'll tell you what is really happening. They think you're going to be this headcount, but I'm not going to hit my goal, right? Because these are the roles that are pushed out, right? So you should go with the CFO. The CFO should pay for this tool. Data is pulled from the ATS, and can it pull from multiple sources of truth? Greenhouse, Workday, yes, we can. I'm just going through some questions. I know Greg answered.
We just had another come in. When people decide not to move forward with your solution, what's usually the reason why?
2 reasons, I would say. One is actually it's the same reason. It is largely on the fact that if you're not seeing, if your headcount is pretty steady state, right, and you're not growing as a company, then it's not a must-have tool. You can live through the changes in a spreadsheet, and it's okay to not have to do things on a more real-time basis. But if you're a growing company, and that's what our focus has been, the reason why people have not gone through this is we have not been able to convince the CFO of the value. Because it's not cheap. The software is not cheap. It is an enterprise grade solution. So it's always tied to budget. And when you don't have the budget and we've not been able to build a business case together, that's why it doesn't go through. So if you're a growing company, let's say, Vercel is a customer, but I'll just use that. If Vercel is growing, Postman is growing, and they still don't buy, I would not blame anybody else but us that we did not help our customer, either the RecOps person or the FinOps person, to go build that business case to ask the CFO for money. Because the CFO is in the default business of saying no, not in the default business of saying yes. It's a default no, and we have to earn the yes. So, that's what, but it happens after 6 months, they come back. So yeah, it takes 6 months to go and make the case, but then it happens. What does the pricing model look at? So it's been the pricing is based on, there are 3 packages depending on the size of the company. And it starts at 15K and can go all the way to 100K as well if you're a large organization. But it is tied to the headcount you are managing in an organization. Can you share more about the tool predicts the estimated start date based on your past data? Is it predicted by role, location, or by recruiter? All three. So when you go into the recruiter, you saw that, if you guys have one more minute, let me just go back. So if you see this view, which is the recruiter view, what is on track, what is at risk, what is past due? When we compute this, we are actually computing that the target start date, which is currently allocated, is not going to miss its goal. And when you double click into this, you will see what is the recommended goal, right? So that date will change if you suddenly assign a more senior recruiter. And we don't know senior by seniority. We just know that I have more data points for them, or they have been more successful in the similar data set. But if you don't want to look at it from a recruiter perspective and you're just applying a departmental filter, then we are looking at department data, right? And then if you're looking at location, so by default, we are always looking at seniority of the role. And we are looking at the past data of how this company has filled these roles in the past. And then we apply the location filter, and then we apply the recruiter filter, right? So think of it more like a progression. When you start and no recruiter is assigned, we still have a prediction for you. It may be 70% accurate. If you put in the location, then you put in the like levels or salary, right? Then we get more data. And then we say, okay, now I have a much 80%, 85% confidence. And then you go assign a recruiter, right? And we say, okay, now I have a little more, now I have one more data set to look into that. How does this recruiter perform in this location for this department with this type of role? So it's a continuous progression where we are suggesting these dates. We will always have a suggestion for you, but it'll get accurate and more accurate as you give us more, what I call as attributes, right? Location is an attribute, department is an attribute. You can just start by saying job title and we will still have a prediction for you, right? But it will not be as accurate. Who else? I need to leave for another meeting. We'll be able to follow up if you have questions or want to schedule a meeting. Sure, I'm at tushar@teamohana.com. If you have registered, you will hear from someone from my team. I'll be honest about it. And then you can just reply to that email. Or I'm also on LinkedIn, Tushar Makhija I'll just write it here. I don't want my Indian accent to screw up my name. Tushar@teamohana.com.
And
Reach out.
Tushar, there's a good question about metrics just above that. What metrics is headcount forecast based on?
What metrics is headcount forecast based on? So is it the count forecast or is it the dollar forecast? Or I'll just answer it for both. So the headcount forecast tells us when you start the year, you give us a plan. It may not be the most accurate plan, but you have a plan, right? So it says that this is your starting headcount and this is going to be the ending headcount because of that plan. And now as you make changes to the plan, maybe you made additions, you added incremental headcount, you pushed out some target start dates, you increase the compensation of certain roles. Certain roles we are predicting are going to close at a later date than what you think in your plan. That is what the headcount forecast is based on. So there is a whole report for that. Again, give me a second. I'll pull that up right here. So there is a whole report. What we call is the effective headcount report. And you can look at this report on a monthly basis. That's the best report. And then I can go into June right now and I can look at the June forecast. So June forecast says this is your starting headcount. And it'll tell you you have one future term, you've got 13 active roles, and your forecast is 506. And then you can look at all the monthly forecast, or you can do it on a quarterly basis. And this takes into account, because this is just a count forecast, it takes into account future starts, future terms, offers out that we expect to join, all of that information, or any predicted forecasted attrition, because we have attrition data as well. And we do the same thing for cost as well. So what you saw for headcount, that is the same thing for cost. That, hey, what is your starting headcount and what is going to be your forecasted ending headcount cost? Right there. And there is a variance report as well. You had said you wanted to, when you planned, it was 621 was going to be your ending headcount. Our current prediction says 530, so you're going to be lower by 91. And then you can click through and understand why. Can you share more about the, okay, yeah. I think that's what the question was, right?
That was the question. I think the very last question before we sign off is, what does your tattoo say? That's the closeout question, everyone.
It says this is midlife crisis tattoo. So it says "Estamos bien," which is I think it means you are okay. So every time I feel stressed, I look at my tattoo. We are fine. Yes, thank you. Right. So "Estamos bien." So that's what I had taken 4 months off after my last startup. I thought I was completely burnt out. My wife was like, "Get out of the house, you're crazy." And then while in Colombia, I got this tattoo. But I was not on a crazy trip. I was on actually a more spiritual trip. And this reminds me that life is okay. It's all good, yes. So that's what it means. That's never been asked on any question ever, but that was a good one. Did he just come up with it, Emily?
No, it's in here. Carmela, I think she said,
Okay.
what does your tattoo say?
Okay.
She
Yeah.
hopped off already, so we'll have to follow up and tell her what it says. But
Okay.
I think that's the perfect
Yeah,
close
I think that
question.
would be the most important part of the recording. Like that's what you start all the outbound like follow-up emails with. In case you missed, this is what his tattoo says. Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you for the time today, Tushar. Great
Thanks,
demo,
Emily.
great conversation. Seems like folks enjoyed the call. For the folks still on the call, hope you enjoyed the call. Hope you learned something. If not, then hope you just enjoyed us chatting about
Yeah.
headcount planning
And knowing what my tattoo says.
and knowing what Tushar's tattoo says. I
All
think
right.
Lahava's already jumped off, so we'll just give the
Yeah.
last goodbye. See y'all.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Emily. Bye.